Oops. Good afternoon. I'll call to order this District of Clearwater regular council meeting for Tuesday, September 6th, 2022 at 2 o'clock. I would like to acknowledge that we are fortunate to be gathering together on the unceded territory of the Símpcwemc people who have been caretakers of this land since time immemorial. Are there any light items that anybody would like to add to the agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Banford, seconded by Councillor Haring. All those in favor? Adoption of the minutes. I wasn't here for the last meeting. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, mover and a seconder on that. Moved by Councillor Frizzle, seconded by Councillor Haring. Again, thank you. Moving on to item 6.1, sewer expansion, development and zoning. There is a report I did see services online there, so I guess we can expect a presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alex here. Maybe I'll just do our screen share and then we'll bring up the PowerPoint. There we go. Hopefully the PowerPoint's available now on the screen.
Yes, it is.
So this application is for a development variance permit, requesting a variance to the subdivision servicing bylaw number 168. And this application is being brought forward a second time. So it was actually before council in February. And the owner is requesting to waive the sewer servicing requirements to enable a 2-lot subdivision. So the property is located at 444 Clearwater Valley Road. There is one existing commercial building on the property. The property has dual zoning. So there's an area of C1 general commercial here in the front, and that's where the commercial building is. Then there's an area of RL1 rural, which is rural residential acreage zoning here at the back of the property. And the owner is proposing a 2-lot subdivision as shown on this map. And so under the district's subdivision servicing bylaw, this whole area is considered service level 1, and that requires, according to the bylaw, connection to both municipal water and municipal sewer. And the issue in this case is that the sewer line is actually on the west side of Clearwater Valley Road with a lift station at Lytton Crescent and Clearview Street. So over on the other side of the road here. So the cost to bore under the road and to tie into the sewer system is significant, especially for a 1-lot or 2-lot subdivision. So the bylaw does allow an exemption for the rural zoned portion of the property. So this area here in the back does not have to be connected to sewer, but the bylaw requires that the commercial property and the commercial building be connected to sewer, and connected meaning not just to the property line, but physically connected to the building. So that would mean in this case that the owner would need to pay to get the sewer line across the road, then physically connect the commercial building and disconnect their existing functional septic system. So that's what precipitated the owner to apply for a variance and to request waiving of the sewer requirements for this one commercial building to enable this subdivision. And since February, planning, the CAO have had multiple meetings with the owner, district engineers, legal, trying to find a holistic solution. Basically looking at options to run the sewer line across Clearwater Valley Road and enable multiple property owners potentially along the corridor to connect. We're bringing this application forward again with an update so that we don't hold the owner up any further. And so council can make a decision on whether or not to support and approve this one variance as a one-off, or whether there's any interest in looking at it more holistically and seeing whether there's any cost sharing with bringing the service line across. So they're two separate issues, but they're very much related because this owner can't proceed with their subdivision without knowing whether or not they have to bring the whole sewer line across the road. And obviously that has a great impact on cost and timing. So the owner has indicated that regardless whether the sewer line is brought across the road or not, they'd prefer to have this variance and not connect the actual existing building because their sewer or their septic system, their on-site septic system is functional, so they'd rather not disconnect a functional system. The concern the staff have is that cost of connection should not be used as a reason for granting a variance. We have many developers who would prefer not connecting to the municipal system, and the variance should not be viewed as an exemption solution. We're also concerned this could set a precedent, and subdivision and the creation of new lots is typically the appropriate time to require connection. It's not as typical to require it later if they're doing an addition to the building or for a building permit. So if they're doing separate lots, that's the time to require the connection. So for those grounds, and because planning staff can only look at, we have technical boxes that we have to look at, we are recommending that the variance be denied as presented. However, the first page of the report, as you'll see, we've included an alternative resolution that council can decide on. And if they wish to do so, it would allow the variance to move forward. And I think a lot depends on the decision of whether or not there'd be any cost sharing to bring the sewer line across the road, because obviously that would have a big impact. If it's very difficult for the owner and costly to get the sewer line across the road, then perhaps the variance is more reasonable. And at that point, the district may also want to relook at service level area 1 in the subdivision servicing bylaw if it's requiring connection to something that is very difficult and costly to connect to. So at this time, staff recommending that it be denied. But again, the alternative resolution is there for council's consideration. So I'll leave it at that and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Alex. Are there any questions of Alex on this file? Councillor Sim?
I just want to confirm where the alternate is. It said it's on the front page, so I just want to make sure I'm reading. So this is the alternate that's being proposed. Should council wish to consider?
Correct. So it's that a notice of intent be issued to consider approval. So the resolution would start at that, a notice of intent be issued.
Further? Go ahead, Councillor Banford.
So does the alternate resolution end up at the same place? Basically, it's just an approval, but a delayed approval, Alex? And the other question I have, the report says that there is some interest in an adjacent landowner connecting. Any other information on that or any follow-up, or is that likely to happen, or do you have any idea?
Yeah, so maybe I'll take the first part of the question first. If council issues notice of intent, then staff will do the advertising for it, and then it comes back at the next meeting, and then council can approve it at that meeting. Staff are recommending that it not even go there. So it's two different recommendations. You either deny it and the owner has to work to connect and pay those costs if they want the subdivision, or you issue the notice of intent, hear from the neighbors, and then decide whether or not to approve it. On the second one, perhaps CEO Thomas can explain that a little bit more, but we understand there is neighboring property that wants to connect as well.
Yes, on the second question, we have spoken to at least one neighboring property owner who is very interested in having the service brought across so that they can pay at their cost to connect to the service itself. If council agrees in principle to the idea, we will certainly expand our canvassing to other property owners in the neighborhood to see if they too would be interested in the same program. We have not gone down the path of doing that additional work because it would be for naught if council choose not to explore that option.
Any further questions, Councillor Sim?
So Alex, I appreciate all the work that your office does and the fact that you've got real strong connection to Clearwater and the development of. Where I'm struggling with is that under a precedent setting, if Clearwater had sewer and it went right in front of the property and there wasn't such an exorbitant cost, I would feel differently. But I'm struggling in the fact that we are still developing as a community, and that in the holistic view, I'm not sure that we've as a community has had a holistic view given how many needs are required in this community. And without doing that comprehensive discussion up Park Drive, I feel really stuck in a hard place. because it seems like a small amount of money would be invested in a small part of our community without the whole being considered. So my question is how do we look at an exemption that doesn't become a precedent?
Without changing the bylaw entirely at this point, I think this is the appropriate method, the variance. And when I say precedent, it isn't a legal precedent. So it's not that from here on in, every similar request would have to be approved by council. Council can one-off, pick and choose. It's more in terms of also for staff and for the development community to understand why is it that this one's a one-off? And certainly, as you're saying, if the argument is that it's extremely costly and difficult to get this sewer line across the road and it's not available at the property line, then that is a reasonable request. The question then is, if others are wanting to develop on this side of the road, do we then suggest that a variance is an option for them if they don't want to connect and pay that same cost? Or do we change the bylaw and just state, on this side of the road right now, there is no connection, there is no ability to connect readily to the sewer system, therefore it should just be changed from there, unless there's a bigger vision of servicing that whole corridor.
So supplemental, if I could, is there any other examples of where maybe this would be an exemption for 6 months, recognizing that there's some other applications so that there's a timeline put on it to maybe bubble up some other interest? So I am concerned for all the reasons you're citing. So I wanted to ask that question.
Yeah, there's not really a way to put a timeline on it. I mean, council can defer it today and then not make a decision. The issue is we've been dealing with this since at least December of, I'm not sure what year it is anymore, but certainly from February on, we've been dealing with this application. And so the owner is kind of at a point where he's saying, okay, which one is it going to be? He can't really wait for months further. It's either connections possible and somehow feasible, or he needs to move on. He really wants to get the subdivision completed. So I think if council feels strongly that that there won't be a connection brought over on a kind of district-wide holistic view, then granting the variance would allow this one-off to occur. And then in the future, if it gets further developed, they could potentially connect at that time. But if council feels that it would be good to bring those sewer line across, then staff would really feel strongly that the owner should be required to connect. So I think there's another agenda item, perhaps CEO Thomas could speak to that, where he's looking at the options of connecting. And so I think, although they're two separate issues for council to look at, they're very much tied. So if council doesn't feel that they should run the sewer line across at taxpayer cost, then that might make the decision on this variance easier. If you feel it is something worthwhile exploring, then perhaps holding off on this variance would be the right thing to do. But again, the owner is waiting to get this work done and wants to proceed.
Councillor Haring.
One thing I'm kind of twigging on in here is the district servicing bylaw setting the urban standard for that area. To me, that's part of our plan, obviously, at some point, was that this was going to be on the district sewer system, requiring at some point a crossing of that road, because we included it in the plan area of where needed to have our sewer connection. So to me, we have a plan in place that this needs to be connected. I think it's absolutely correct. The cost is high, but that's part of developing land at subdivision. So to me, the district, finding a way to get power across that road is something we assumed in that original servicing bylaw by including this into the bylaw in the first place.
Thank you. Anything further from questions from council? Councillor Sim again?
So the infrastructure master plan sort of outlined a lot of this, and it's been sitting on our shelf for a while. And I don't think that we've really had that opportunity to dig into it and to develop it. So maybe if we hadn't had forest fires, a mill closure and maybe COVID, we would have been, but that infrastructure master plan kind of lays this out. I feel more comfortable about issuing the variance until we look at the community as a whole and do as the plan suggests and get that that funding articulation and get that community vision fine tuned. If for me to vote to encourage the crossing, it doesn't feel right because we haven't done our due diligence with the rest of it, in my opinion.
Anything further? I'm going to agree with Councillor Sim on this one. I think this really pushes towards expediting our view of the OCP and what the vision is for expansion in our community. There's a lot of lines and areas that were decided, especially during the OCP, which was a long time ago. I sat on that committee for areas that would be serviced to a certain level. There was also the feeling that it was going to take an awful long time for that to happen. And, 20, 30, 50 years. And we're seeing an acceleration of some of that based on what was put in the OCP come up quite quickly, especially Park Drive and that road. But in this particular case, I don't see a feasible way for this one property to even come close to making it feasible for them to cross. So it's basically by denying the variance, you're denying the subdivision on this, and basically, we're talking about a 2-lot subdivision here with an existing building that's been there for years. I just don't see it as a positive at this point. If the neighbors along that corridor come up and start wanting to do hookups, sewer hookups and that sort of thing in the future, and I think we can revisit this and then maybe ask that landowner or the next landowner of that property to come on board. I think it would be much more feasible if the cost was shared 10 or 20 ways versus what it's going to be on this one. But at a 1 to 2 person share, which is what kind of what we know exists right now, I don't see this as being financially fair or feasible. So that's where I would go on it. So we have a recommendation and an alternate recommendation. What is the will of council?
Well, I would move the accept one, the exception.
That a notice of intent be issued to consider approval of development variance permit number DVP 2103 for 444 Clearwater Valley Road, Lot A, District Lot 3856 KDYD Plan KAP 51762 except Plan KAP 61797. That's what you're moving.
That gets us everything we want, right? Because it seems like a lot of code in there.
It is.
Okay,
Yes.
so moved.
Do I have a seconder on that? I can't second it.
Whoa.
I think you guys convinced me. I see your point about.
Okay. Discussion. Councillor Frizzle.
I feel like we're almost putting the cart before the horse. We should be making that decision beforehand. Like the thing that we're going to be talking about later, about if we're going to cross or not.
Yep.
And we can't put that on one person or 2 people even.
Yep.
That's where I'm feeling the same as Councillor Sim, that it's just it's a big cost for an individual.
Councillor Banford, did you have a comment?
No, just a quick question. Is my belief that there is a sewer connection along Eden Road and that type of stuff, which is closer to Highway 5?
We're in discussion.
We're in discussion
Oh,
here. So
okay.
yes, but you're correct from my understanding, Councillor Banford, but in past discussions, my understanding is the Eden Road connection near Dairy Queen is a capacity or near capacity already. So
Okay.
that
Just
wouldn't
wondering.
be a,
Long-term development.
but when we're talking about this in the
Yeah.
future about planning for that area,
Yeah.
definitely. Councillor Sim.
I think this is just an example of our infancy to toddlership to teenager years, is the fact that we have these great things of what we wanted to grow into, but we didn't necessarily attach cost to what that would mean. And I think that's why we're so lucky to have Alex and some of his oversight. And I thank you so much for helping us adult But we've got to take it easy on our citizens, given that this is just a consequence of how we planned, and it wasn't fulsome for that valley, for that corridor.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. Thank you, Alex, Mr. Kraus. See you next
you.
time.
Thank you all.
Moving on along, we have nothing under 7, 8, 9. Delegations, Valley Pride delegation, come on down. Is that game show enough? Welcome. Yes, you are.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for taking this time.
Oh, thank you. Is it on? Okay, thank you for taking your time for us today. So just a little update from Valley Pride. We are proud to announce that we are now officially an incorporated nonprofit society. Yay! So we're getting through some of the boring paperwork part. The rest of our little update here is, so we've started working on some projects and we've started collaborating with some other groups in town. Nothing's like for sure yet, so I'm not mentioning names until we for sure have things in place, but we've got lots of conversations going right now, and it's super exciting, lots of very positive feedback. We are working a lot with our social engagement. We've already volunteered for some other nonprofit groups in town, and we have some more coming up here as well. So we're going to be volunteering on Truth and Reconciliation Day. We are moving forward on our Visual Safe Space campaign. We're working with a couple other groups to collaborate and do something like a coffee house once a month, hopefully, and a games night sort of thing. And this is a kind of a cool one that we're just starting to work on too. So as part of our Safe Space project, we'll be collaborating with the Gateway Grill, because that's us. And during the slower months, we're going to open up the restaurant as just like a safe space for people to come hang out. We want to make sure that it's on a school day over lunch hour, so the kids from the high school can come over. They have a GSA program over there. School's just starting, so we're just working at connecting with them as well. And we want to do a sharing wall in the restaurant, so it'd be a sort of a public sharing wall where people can come and post their art and their stories and all that kind of stuff. So it'd be kind of cool if we could get the high school involved with that as well. So working on that. And then we've got a couple other things here. So Valley Pride vision for next year. So I'm just going to share sort of for informational purposes only, a vision of what we'd like to do for Valley Pride. And then after that, I'm going to pass it over to Sean, and he's got an expanded summary on visually socially inclusive projects that we're thinking of. So our vision is to hold a Clearwater Pride Festival on May Day, hopefully a long weekend in 2023. This would be an event for everyone, and events such as these, I think, are something that our community could definitely use, and they can have long-term positive effects on mental health and wellness for our community, give people something to look forward to, and be able to get out there and have fun together. We want this event to be for people of all ages to enjoy. This event has the potential to be economically beneficial to Clearwater. The timing of the event has been chosen with thought, as it's too busy in the summer, obviously, for anything service business related, tourism and all that sort of stuff. And in the fall, nobody has the energy, to do anything either, because we're all done by the time we get there. So we're thinking like May would be good because it's pre-season. You still have accommodation space and whatnot available in town if you were to be able to attract people from out of town, and that could help bump up our pre-season a little bit. May Day weekend has traditionally been an event weekend sort of thing that the community always looked forward to in Clearwater. Used to have the parade, right, that the Rotary put on. There's always ball tournaments, and I believe there was stock car races at some point, but that sort of just started up again. So I'm not sure if that's a May Day thing, but point is there's kind of a lot of stuff going on, used to be anyways, May Day long weekend. So We understand after unofficially speaking with a couple of the members from the Rotary Club that they've sort of retired from organizing the parade. They don't really want to have much to do with it. We may be able to reach out to them and get some insight and help on how they set it up, but for the most part that I've understand, they don't want to have anything to do with it. So, and yeah, nobody else, as far as I know, has come forward to want to do the parade. Okay, so good to know. So Valley Pride would like to present the idea of us hosting the May Day parade. And we're already planning Pride anyways for 2023. So that could be a good way to use something that was already existing in the community to sort of rebrand it and make it happen again. So here's just sort of a summary of the weekend, because we want to do a Pride festival versus just like a one event thing. So we start here with, again, this is all just sort of examples. We don't really know, but say Friday evening, location, again, you know, hypothetical, right? So the DLC, thank you. The DLCC field here with a band shell is obviously a good venue to get people together at. So we were thinking it'd be kind of cool if we could host a dinner that's free or by donation. And Valley Pride could team up with Gateway Grill for this dinner. So that part can already be taken care of. And this, we were thinking this could be done in conjunction with local musicians, sharing their tunes and stuff like that on the stage. We share a meal together. During this time, we could do some sort of opening ceremonies, bless the space and acknowledge the ancestral heritage and people of the land. And then we want that Friday dinner to be accessible for everybody. So we would like to coordinate transportation for the seniors to and from the event, so they could come and have a space to sit and eat dinner and, you know, have some entertainment at the same time. The next day, Saturday, location we were thinking is the old downtown / IWE building I've put, but we all know where that is, down at the old Safety Mart building. So start with a morning market. There's already a couple of markets in town that do markets down there. So if we could collaborate with them, we may be able to get a market going in the morning. And markets in town. We'll also be reaching out to various other vendors, if we can get other vendors from out of town. Talk with the other groups in town as well. We're just starting to talk with the Elks, and we're actually volunteering with them. I believe it's, is it next Saturday? Next Saturday. So, but again, just an example, we get the Elks to do rainbow pancakes or something like that, and then they're raising money for their organization at the same time. And then the parade. So then the parade, we would like to start there in that area. So the Grass Boulevard would be a great place to watch the parade from, you know, in between. The parade could start around the IWE building, continue through and end here. So continue down, I guess, whatever that road is there, and up by the police station, and then end here at the field. The parade would function much the same as in the past, except the Valley Pride would be putting on the parade as a Pride themed parade. Local groups and businesses would be encouraged to participate. Groups and businesses wanting to participate would not require to actually have their theme or their float like a Pride theme. Like it can be any float. There'll be sort of a Pride section in the parade. And so if the world revolves around foods, we want this event to be for everybody. So again, Valley Pride would offer everyone a hot dog or something like that by donation after the parade down here at the DLCC field. Valley, that's where we would have tents and stations for all ages, interactive craft booths for younger children, etc. You know, things like that. Again, we try and get as many businesses as we can. It's a great place to showcase themselves. And other organizations that have resources that they'd like to share with people. Transportation, again, and seating would also be required that day for the seniors, so that they could come and hang out and spend some time. This could be done using tents and chairs or picnic tables for the seating. We want to have face painting, 2S, LGBTQ++ support booth, games booth, yard games, vendors, And we're working with a few of the committees in town here. We'd like to have an art station. And then of course you need things like a first aid booth, Valley Pride information booth. And then during this time, so everybody comes up at the parade, they get a hot dog, they check out all the little tents and whatnot. And then you'd open up the stage at that point for sort of like community sharing, right? If anybody, if we have any shows or something that, you know, we want to do, or local musicians, dance, storytellers, cultural sharing, all that kind of stuff. So, and we want to have, yeah, set up sort of in a circle around the stage so you can have the area in front of the stage clear so people can interact and dance and kids and things like that. And I always love doing things like that in front of a stage when there's fun music playing. So our goal would be to have enough interest between the two locations to keep people kind of engaged until later on in the day. And then if we could have some other food vendors there as well, even one or two, then there's more food to be had afterwards. Friday evening, I'm kind of thinking about an event where we would need two locations, one for parking and the other would be at the Clearwater Ski Club. This would be a social event and it would be a pride dance / social at the ski hill. This would coincide with having extra people in town for all the ball tournaments. We want to host a safe place for people to let loose a little bit on the long weekend. For this event, we will have a social with music and dancing. We've discussed at length and have decided because there would be alcohol at this event, there'd be strict rules in place. Again, that's working with other organizations in town. We're hoping the ski hill can be making money off of something like alcohol, and then we team up and make some money for Valley Pride with your entry fee or cost or something like that. And so we want this access or this part of the event to be accessed by shuttle only. I don't know if this has really been done much before in Clearwater, but I think it would be kind of cool if you could have parking somewhere else. You have a shuttle going back and forth in between every 15 minutes. And that way you don't have to worry about people driving their vehicles up there and leaving their vehicles and all that sort of stuff. So we would be working with the RCMP for sure with that one to make sure that it was set up safely to keep it safe for everybody. And then Sunday morning, we're still throwing around some ideas, but it would be kind of fun to have just sort of a chill little morning event, chill and float. Again, you can involve some food or something like that. And yeah, so lots more planning and logistics will be needed to be discussed and covered. Some of these would be for the parking, emergency routes, obviously all your parade stuff, you have to deal with all that. First aid, washrooms, hand wash stations, some forms of security and volunteers, of course, too. So we would appreciate Mayor and Council's consideration and feedback on this summary through the lens of the district's Equity, Diversion and Inclusion Working Group. We want this event to be a fun event where Clearwater and the people of our community can showcase their culture, arts, and services together. That's that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions, comments? I'll start if you, yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah, no, I think this is great. You got a lot of great ideas in there. I actually really love the idea about the shuttle service to a ski hill event. That's a great idea. That's a heck of a lot to chew off. So it's very ambitious plans, but yes, congratulations on doing it or thinking about doing it. Hopefully you can loop lots of people in, and if you need a volunteer, right now, no problem. I was also watching portions of the Nelson Pride event this past weekend that my sister and her family attended. It is a massive economic generator for down there. It brings in from people far and wide, and I think there was more people in the parade than live in the downtown core of Nelson. So it is quite the show. So yeah, best of luck, and you have my support for sure. Councillor Sim.
Thanks so much. It is true. Anytime there's a fun event in town, it's always amazing. And having just been at the Barrier Fall Fair, I think what Clearwater is missing is that return of a signature event. So my questions were, is the vision as a Pride parade or a May Day parade themed as Pride? I wasn't sure from the blurb.
Oh, did you guys?
I believe the intention was for Valley Pride to fund the May Day parade. We would have a float in there, and it would be a May Day parade with the Pride. in it, was that not? or
Kind
maybe-
of.
maybe I'm
So we
mistaken.
want to use an event that's already, well, it's just because that event is already pre-existing and no one's doing it. So, so if there's nobody organizing it, Valley Pride would organize the parade, but most of the parade would function the same way as previous May Day parades, right? So your businesses put in your floats, all your organizations, all that kind of stuff. And again, it wouldn't be a requirement to be in the parade that you had to have a theme, a pride theme float or something like that. There will be a section of the parade for sure set aside for pride, and we're going to be reaching out to all the other little communities, you know, surrounding areas, and hopefully they'll come and represent as well too. But that's why we want it to be for everybody, so we don't want to have a parade where, you know, please come join our parade, but you have to put a rainbow on your float sort of thing. So you don't have to.
Right, because Rotary had always themed it like, you know, adventure starts here or something. So I wasn't sure.
Oh, that way as in
Right.
like brand, you could branding, so to say, branding the name of it, like we would be, yeah, I suppose rebranding it somehow, but keeping that May Day
It's the May Day
theme
parade.
in there so that everybody knows that, right?
I think that Clearwater's always had the May Day long weekend.
Yeah.
With it. I wasn't sure where the events for Saturday night were. So did I miss that? Because I saw Friday and Sunday.
Oh, Saturday night would be the ski hill, sorry.
Okay, I saw
Yeah,
that
so
as
for
a
sure,
Friday, so
the ski hill is where you would want to do that.
yeah.
Friday's
It's
the
not
first.
Friday.
Okay, got it.
Is that
In
what
the
you-
package, it says Friday, Dan,
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
that.
There's two on
That's
Friday,
okay. No,
that's
no,
all.
I just,
Okay, yeah, so we skipped days, sorry, so Saturday. Saturday
so
would be. up at the
Saturday,
ski hill,
okay.
yeah.
okay. And in what your blurb is that you'd like to be part of the working group with the District of Clearwater.
Yeah.
In terms of that, because I think that, you know, the goal of the committee is to look at planning ahead and budgeting
Right.
for those types of events. So this would be something that you would want to be considered
Yes.
as that.
Because that's been, yeah, so this is sort of a, yeah, this is what we want to do. What kind of things would we need to do to make this work? What kind of working groups would we work under? Yeah, how to get the date secured in forms of like approval of using the road or emergency service, like routes and all that kind of stuff. Which obviously we have to do all with the district.
Yeah, and
so.
again, I think with any small town, if you're not pulling under an umbrella organization, you know, it really puts some strain on. And I think that just to have that community commitment and funding, it just helps kick it off to ensure it. I mean, that's where sometimes we fall a bit soft and the air out of our tires is we don't continue on the funding. And so this is a really, you know, it's very timely given new direction. So
Yeah, so exactly, there will be, yeah, requests for funding and that coming up next. But this is the basic, you know, what do you guys think? Are you interested? Is this something you think we could do? Could we possibly use these spaces that we're talking about? And if so, yeah, would there be a cost or would we work underneath an umbrella?
and even the logistics, because I know that one of the reasons why the flats was chosen is because of just how the staging was handled. And you had
Right.
so many people, so working all of that out. So that's where you need lots of eyes. So I'm excited about having this brought under that. So thank you very, very much for
Thank you.
this.
Yeah, Councillor Frizzle.
I'm very excited about this whole weekend thing. It sounds really good. And you're talking about seniors. And so we're on board. I'm volunteering, whatever it takes as far as they're concerned, you know, however we can work it. We'll work together. Yeah, so lots of planning, but don't forget you have lots of people that are going to be willing to help.
Thank you. Anything further? Well, thank you for your
Yes, thank you.
presentation. And that looks good. Barry, do you have a question or?
No, that's
Okay,
thank you.
okay. Thank you. That's really exciting and good luck. And of course, there's lots of people at this table that have organized events before and dealt with some of the issues and potential roadblocks that you have. So I'm sure that we'll be happy to pass on our knowledge from, I don't know, how many canoe regattas did you do, Shelley? And I was your lackey there. So
You are fabulous.
Yeah. Mr. Thomas, did you have a comment or?
I have two actually. Staff is working on putting out the call for the working group to the public. We may do some invitation as well, but would council be interested in referring the ideas to that working group so that we can coordinate the district's
Participation
or
or assistance, yeah. Somebody want to make a motion to that?
So moved.
Second, Councillor Sim, all those in favor? Okay, and that passes. Okay, you're free. Thank you.
Okay, do we have time for one more?
Oh, do you? Sorry.
There's, it's quick, yeah, really quick. I can read through it quick. So this is just about the walking path and the benches, the potential for the benches and maybe some picnic tables on there.
Okay.
So Clearwater's new walking path would be a perfect place for Clearwater to showcase who we are and the folks visiting and passing through. Just to put it really quick, like I could just summarize this all very quickly. There's lots of spaces in Clearwater to be putting visual representation of all our different demographics and stuff in town. Like we have different ethnic groups. I'd love to see a flag for every single person, individual person that lives in Clearwater. This could be on the path itself, like leading up to the safety mark there.
Okay.
Laid on it visually, or off to the side, so people aren't walking directly on the flags and wearing them off, but maybe like bars on the side of each path.
Yep.
And then on the path itself, off to the side, maybe up closer to the safety mark or the bylaw it is called now.
Yeah.
You could be putting benches and benches all along the path, and also picnic tables right up around there, maybe with a little spot for umbrella in it, so people can have their lunches there and be a little bit of social space there. And then the other real quick thing is there's the building at the lake. It did have a mural on it at one point.
Yes.
And it doesn't have one now. We were talking about having.
It's funny you bring that up because a community citizen completely unrelated to this said, you know, you're doing the mural proposal up by the skate park, but you know, we've got this building, the Dutch Lake washroom building. Why isn't there a mural on that one? So
yeah, that was so any we're willing to work with whoever wants to paint that up to raise funds for it, or even work together to paint it. If there's we have lots of people in our club that are wanting to do lots of artistic representation around town. So if there's any way we could get involved with that or get funding for that or something, that'd be great. This is true.
yeah, that's a good idea, and I would suggest that the next council has to come up with a mural policy, lickety split to something really simple,
And I think
it's coming out of the woodwork right now. So
I think it goes without saying with that new path, garbage cans also need to be on there as well, and it's just another opportunity to paint those and make them look real nice for town. And the last but not least, pride crosswalks. I wanted to put, we were talking about getting pride crosswalks put into town, and I just want to strongly suggest by the clinic and the school there's like a three-way one. You can do like a legit rainbow there.
There'd be good location, and also if you go down to downtown Kamloops, there is one representing Aboriginal.
Oh
people
yes, of course.
With the white feathers and the orange crosswalk. I think it'd be a good location for 2 painted crosswalks if we're doing one at one point.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. And just with all the stuff going up, I think we used to have stuff in town kind of showing the history of the town, like from like settler time and all that. And I don't see any of that now. And I love looking at visual representations of our history, like things you can point to and be like, this was something that happened back then, and it's something that everybody can connect to and relate to.
For sure, absolutely.
That's the bullet point for everything I was supposed to put together. So if that's all right.
Very well done. Councillor
questions?
Sim.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because the, that is all part of that vision that I think is going to be under the Parks, Recreation and Social Development. I mean, what you're referring to are social spaces.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, actually, there's a word I
Right.
actually completely missed in there. Yes, we were really, these are all opportunities to create social spaces in Clearwater for people to gather around and socialize and talk. And
We talked about our
absorb
red chair
the history.
Adirondack and just, but they have to be strategic. And so I think that working group will encapsulate a lot of these ideas. How do we work with the existing assets and just highlight the community in a variety of ways?
Absolutely.
And certainly picnic tables would block off all the people who think that that's just another highway. That
Right.
pathway.
And so like the space we're talking about in particular, which wasn't quite highlighted, is that new walking path where it overlooks the lake, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's really close to Bilo, Tim Hortons, the Wells Koreans. So you have a lot of tourists walking that path anyways. They grab something to eat, they walk on the path, they're gonna need a garbage can, or you might be able to have a meeting or something with somebody. You go sit on a picnic table and you have a nice view of the lake, right? Just it could be an opportunity for a new social space, really, like a new space.
We just have to invigorate our presentation.
Yes.
That's it. So thank you. So I think that under that working group, make sure that these notes are maybe passed through as part of your presentation, because they are good starting points for the dialogue, because they're well thought out and articulated. And then how do we start actioning it, especially given the fact that you've connected with other community members. It's a great opportunity to invite tourism, because of course we're going to have to restart that part of our community. So this creates it and allows us to plan thoughtfully.
And there was a couple of businesses that have said that they would like to sponsor a bench, but we are wondering what the district's requirements would be to do that. Like what sort of bench and how does it have to be built and all that sort of stuff.
Pretty sure we actually have
have
a
a
policy on
policy.
that. But yeah, so you can connect with staff at some time in the future, maybe a couple weeks down the road, because we've got a crazy couple weeks
Yeah,
coming
no,
up
that's
here
okay. Perfect.
now. But yeah, you can get the details on what the standard and what that costs and what we expect. So,
Okay.
okay,
And then one more quick little blip. It was another thing. I don't know if I can, but
you're here, might as well.
okay. I heard that Lindsay Lee is the one that wants to do that mural up at the high school, and I think she already has the picture and everything. But I understand that maybe she didn't quite have permission yet, and I did hear you guys talking about a policy on that. So I'm just wondering if council had made a decision or not on.
Not yet. We still have to discuss it. So we'll probably discuss it later today or tomorrow, or in the near future. We have a very busy couple of weeks, but we'll try to get on it. I don't doubt if she's going to have time to be able to get too far on it this year, but maybe in October. we'll have a
Okay.
discussion.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
time.
Well, thank you.
Yay. Have a good day. Thank you for that. Moving on to mayor's report. Because I missed the longest council meeting in history. I'm just going to keep saying that out loud by being on holidays. Saturday, August 27th, I attended the half marathon. Fantastic event. Mr. Thomas and I volunteered to do a checkpoint. We were doing crazy traffic direction up there on the hillside, watching people get stung by bugs and things like that. So a lot of fun and an incredibly well organized event. I've offered to help with publicity and communications next year on that event. Over the last time since I've attended a council meeting, I've done, I think, dozens and dozens of interviews on our healthcare situation. Very happy that we right now have 24/7 hospital coverage. Knock on wood, everybody, because it's very, very tenuous. I also spoke this morning to 2 people in management with BC Ambulance. They are managing to scrape together staff to cover shifts here in town, basically on a rolling basis, a couple days at a time. So that's good news. And then that brings up, well, what will be next week, which is sort of what's coming. Myself, I believe Mr. Thomas and Councillor McKenzie are the only ones attending UBCM. We have a lot of meetings. We now have a meeting with the Minister of Forests to talk about community forest tabular rates, returning our initial attack crews to town as well for the wildfire part. We have an in-person meeting with Minister Dix on Friday, which I can tell you right now is actually a rarity for small communities. Several quite a lot larger than us that requested those meetings have been refused. So that's quite good. I myself will be actually speaking right after Minister Dix on the Tuesday plenary session at UBCM, discussing for, I get 7 minutes to rapid fire what has happened to Clearwater. Gabby Wickstrom from Port McNeil and Pete Fry from Vancouver will be the other 2 people speaking to that. And then an expert panel will dissect what we had to say and Minister Dix has to say. So it should be a very lively and well-covered discussion. We also have meetings with BC Hydro, Fortis, Trans Mountain, Simp, and I believe Rogers is going to talk to us about something as well. And I will be discussing the paramedic situation with the BC Paramedics Ambulance Union as well. I also met with the Men's Shed Club, who at some point in the future will have to start paying rent for their facility. And it was suggested, and this is to preemptively throw an idea at council, that they would like to maybe trade work at maybe building things like, I don't know, Adirondack chairs or picnic tables in lieu of rent. So, and doing other small fix-it things. Considering the amount of rent we would take in for that area, I think in the future, when staff have time, there's an opportunity for discussion there. And I'll just leave it there for now, but I look forward to next week. It's going to be a very, very busy weekend and quite interesting, I think. Moving on to council reports, Councillor Frizzle.
Not a whole lot happening for me. I also volunteered at the half marathon. I thought it was such a great event. There was people from all over the province, from Alberta and also from Colorado. There was lots of vendors there as well. It was just well done. It was a lot of fun, and I think it's a real good opportunity for this community to really showcase itself. So I'm really looking forward to next year. And I would like to bring up some comments that have been made about our pathway at the hotel and how the traffic has been going on it and how we need to block that off or put signs up, put up, what did you call it?
Bullard.
A bullard, so that vehicles can't go through, because they are going through and they're not obeying the signs or even obeying people that are talking to them and saying you're going the wrong way. So I think we need to do something before something happens. We'll regret. We've heard a lot.
Thank you. Do you want to comment on that? No, you're good. You know. No, I mean, if you've got a solution or if you know, if there's something in the works already, go right ahead.
So the district actually, when we did the substantial completion walkthrough, had identified areas for signage, had identified the need to install delineators where the pathway intersects with the actual Highway 5, just by Tim Hortons area. We've also at that time identified we needed to block off the access point from the liquor store area, and I believe there are 4 large blocks blocking that pathway entering there, because the first incident, the vehicle entered from the parking lot of Bosbury. The second incident, they entered from the bylaw location up there. So more will be done in the next couple of weeks on that issue, and hopefully the vehicles will not be entering there.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I figured that you were aware. Just keeps happening. Anything further, Councillor Frizzle? Okay. Thank you. Councillor Haring.
Attended the CAO workshop. Aside from that, nothing else going on.
Thank you. Councillor Banford.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. Attended the Retention and Recruitment Committee meeting. And it was really quite a good meeting. A lot of discussion, a lot of things I think will move forward on that. I think the committee is doing some really good work. Want to thank staff for that, for the information they provided at the meeting. Did a really good job of providing options, looking at opportunities that we have to work together with other organizations. Did work on the cemetery committee, trying to work with the CEO just to finalize an initial survey about people's comments that can go out. One of the members has done a draft for us for a Survey Monkey type thing with some simple questions about it. So looking forward to get that out, sort of a thing, so we can continue to move forward. And the rest of my time mostly has been spent trying to help out a really elderly neighbor who had major surgery, taking care of things at home while he's in the hospital, and he's still in the hospital. So hopefully he'll get home soon. So
it's happening a lot. Good for you. Thank you. Councillor Sim.
Thanks very much. Yes, the half marathon was super fun. What I learned as my volunteering at the parking lot is that Google Maps is not Clearwater's friend. And I think that that's really important for businesses to be aware of, is that, depending on your algorithm, that can really sort of distort. We had a lot of people coming in and I'm thinking, where did you come from? Oh, the back roads. So despite, I thought the organizers did a great job of signage on the highways, which speaks to signs are not always effective when Google seems to trump all. The ski hill, they had a really, really, really fun night with their band. So many people showed up, and I was at a hospital auxiliary meeting just before this, and so many of the ladies said, best night ever. So it just a really broad sense of inclusion, which was really good there. There's an issue coming up in Bavenby in the fact that the Bavenby citizens are looking for school bus transportation. Their numbers to the school are growing, but it's a capacity issue. I am sharing this piece of information because one of the things that would fit in beautifully is the transit bus, and it's the scheduling. So I share that because I've also left a message with Director Schaefer, is that for a bus that's highly underutilized, and that there's yet a community need. And so how can we better leverage these assets for the benefit of the taxpayers and the community in there? So it would be looking at some of that scheduling. The school board staff are looking at it. I just wanted to, in case you heard of anything, just to give you some background, and happy to take any questions now or after the meeting on that. The hospital auxiliary joined the district in Clearwater in doing gestures of appreciation by way of flowers to the hospital, to the nurses, and also to the health center. Just recognizing that this has to be a full effort by all community. And it also speaks to the point that one of the things that I'm wondering if we've lost sight of is how do we include people? And it's as simple as, would you like to go for coffee? Can I invite you for dinner? We have new people in town who don't know anybody. And if they have to rely on their colleagues for that, it can be lonely. And is there a way that we can reinvigorate that small town hospitality, which used to be, would you like to come, join us? So I just share that just on a matter of that. Speaking of just ways that people can get included, there's going to be a learn how to pickleball moment, but I'm looking for somebody to teach pickleball on the 16th, or at least just say what the rules are.
You could probably talk to Lauren Wright.
I did.
Okay.
And so I'm just waiting for a firm answer. So I thought I'd throw it out here.
Well, I'll throw it out there publicly so he feels emboldened to go teach.
Okay,
pickleball.
whatever it takes. I
Yeah.
did speak to him last week. He says, well, I think I can get, but gosh darn, he's busy for somebody who's retired. Speaking of pickleballs, has Parks been able to solve the problem of the water flowing onto the tennis court?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I mean, for water conservation, we are not doing ourselves any favors. I think that our parks manager is already on it. That's my understanding. But when you go by there in the morning, the park, is
it a sprinkler issue or
it's
is
a
it?
sprinkler issue,
Okay.
and it's just whether it should just be turned off or something, but it's not good for the tennis courts alone and just as an asset. So how we can,
It's probably just a directional issue if somebody was to point it
well,
out.
the company from what I understand has been up, but it is, I went by today and I'm like, this is bad. Like the pickleballers had brought it up to me and I'm like, you're right. And as a tennis court lover, it's.
So pickleball, water polo is not a sport?
No,
That-
it's
okay,
not. It's
okay,
not.
Thank you.
I also just want to say thank you to Summer Stage for putting on just a really sensational summer things. Hockey school was another massive success. Lots of people going on. And I will say that I had one little boy and I was asking him if he was going to wear his t-shirt. He said, I'm not wearing that t-shirt. It's too nice. So that was really fun there. We had lots of people from out of town. The other thing that was really successful was our fire department and their youth engagement that did last week. We have an international student who's joining us for the year, and his question was, is there a youth firefighting? Because I've been doing that in Germany for 2 years. So the fact that our local division is doing it, I think that there's room for more. And from what I understand, they had 20 people or 20 kids that came out. And it's I think what they're onto is unbelievable. And I would be really open if they needed a bit more funding to kind of help bring those kids in or something like that. It is a bomber idea. And I think that's about it.
That wasn't enough. Anyways, yeah, that's good. Thank you for the reminder on the wildfire or the firefighter thing, because that is one point I do want to bring up as a solution to the minister was the old program here of junior wildfire fighter. Their BC wildfire is always talking about they can't get people. Well, they used to get people because they used to recruit them right out of high school in Clearwater. And
They ran the program through the school.
yeah, and it was a very large success. I think at least 3 or 4 crew leaders that I can think of came out of this town. So that's one good one to fire back at them for removing our crews from town. Thank you, everybody. We'll move past committee of the whole minutes because we don't have any. Right on to committee of the whole reports. Councillor Taylor is not here for government operations, community act dev and infrastructure. Councillor Banford.
Thank you. Our next meeting is November the 1st.
And Parks, Rec, Social Development, Councillor Sim. You have 2 recommendations there. You would be, well, you just have the 2 recommendations. I don't think they're actually in the agenda. So
Yeah, I think they are.
are they?
But
Just on page 3 in the your agenda. No, 330. All or sorry, no, sorry, 303. There we go. Right at the top of that page that you were just holding. No, keep going back. No, right there, right there.
It's my first meeting. I like this one. First recommendation is that council direct staff to develop a diversity, equity.
Do I have a discussion on that?
Mr. Thomas, is there? No.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm guessing. I don't know. Yeah, it did.
Okay.
And the reason I asked for that is because it was going to be discussed among. So I'm making a massive assumption. I'm not sure. So obviously not. Moving on.
Okay, so there is a
I'm not
recommendation if
sure
you're,
what's being asked of me.
It's fine.
Okay. Do you want to make that recommendation?
Yeah, I did make the
Okay,
recommendation.
does somebody want to second that recommendation? Thank you. Discussion.
So I think that the importance of having this is helping our community grow, learn, and just understand more about one another. And I think from a lot of the data that I've done is that we need more mirrors in our community, and we need to understand how to ask better questions and how to maybe learn how to approach different social interactions differently. Even understanding our own staff and potential. I look at the numbers that are coming out of our school system, and there is a new language out there and a new way of being. An easy example would be the importance of pronouns and why we're seeing that. And you're seeing it at the bottom of a lot of government signatures. You're seeing it in healthcare signatures, but I don't know if we all understand it. I know I struggle with the learning for it, and I'm hoping that this type of working group would be the start of that pathway of learning. That would be my hopes for it. But I welcome what other people think about this. And it is also based on the last memo and the policy that Lidstone and Company had shared. Yeah, which I thought was very comprehensive.
Further questions or comments on this? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Can't really say no to that one. But we can, I'm sure that this will take some time in the future for staff to figure out how we do this. So we'll, I'm sure it probably won't get done pre-election.
No,
anyway, so.
I was noticing even, doing some sort of original, because how do you do it when you don't necessarily have the capacity to do it alone? There's a great, and there's lots of great ones, but for Canadian in particular, cglcc.ca, there's a really easy workforce session on how you can help your staff be more educated. There's lots of different ones about, businesses, and it's just learning modern day language.
Sounds like a workshop for the future.
For everybody, and even for future council. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. And second recommendation?
Second, that council continue to financially fund supportive efforts for recruitment out of a recruitment and retention budget.
We don't want to explain what this one's about.
Yeah, so one of the challenges of being a community who continues to work in recruitment, where Clearwater has an advantage is that our community, meaning the council, has budgeted for it. And so sometimes things will come up impromptu. So for example, on Thursday afternoon, we got a call from a physician who is part of the IMG cohort, who is on a short list for Clearwater. And they called and they said, hey, we're going camping up in Wellsbury Park. Could we meet with anybody on Monday? So I said, yep, sure. And Dr. Perdue was available, and but there were no cafes open to go for lunch. So it was a way to quickly go by like a charcuterie board type thing. And that this would be a recruitment, because at the end of the meeting, when we've said, look, what we earnestly hope for you is that you find a community that you feel like you fit. That's the most important thing is anywhere you go in BC, you're going to have wonderful outdoor opportunities, but where will be your community? And the partner of the doctor said, if this is any example about you can immediately, there's no place to go for lunch, so you throw open this type of a buffet, it speaks volumes to the type of community this is. So the funding funds these types of spur of the moment opportunities that we might otherwise miss, and yet they're invaluable. Any other questions? Did I miss anything on that, Mr. Thomas?
Questions, comments? Obviously, I want policy on this for myself. I want to know how we're doing this, and I want a basically way of accounting for this. I would really like this one fleshed out for future so that we actually don't get ourselves into trouble on this one.
So just to speak to that, is at the last meeting that we did present the first broad strokes, recognizing exactly that. And this just identified the gaps. Mr. Thomas and I, we've had extensive conversations on the importance of policy and having a policy that allows us to be fluid, staying within the lines and still achieves the objectives.
And I also like the idea of community partners.
It's
participating
all
this.
in the draft. I don't,
Excellent.
it was a 5-hour meeting, so you might have missed that. or
I thought it
2
was like a
hour 40.
7-hour meeting, but anyways.
Yeah, so it is in there, and as Mr. Thomas and I, we've talked about, it is building the structure.
I love the idea of building a structure. That sounds great. Thank you. So that
It's a high five, Mr. Thomas. It's
Okay.
you and I working together.
so you moved that one. Did somebody
did.
second it?
No,
Anybody want to second it? Second it? All those in favor? Thank you. And those two are passed. Moving on to select committee reports, 16.1, Councillor Taylor's not here. Next meeting is September 13th. Community Active Dev, Councillor Frizzle.
I have a question on this. Yeah. Is we do have that grant, and I recognize that there's been some challenges in getting the task force to meet, but I am wondering how we are managing on that grant and what deliverables are being met. We do have some budget that's there, and I'm just wondering, will we be getting that an update?
I think Mr. Thomas is writing that down, and I would probably expect an update in the next council meeting. Is that what you're looking at? I'm thinking. Okay. On the active grant.
Just on the ECDEV grant, we had some things that had to, and we had a budget. And
Yeah, we had a
it's-
timeline of
It's March.
2023, March 2023.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, so
No.
that's why I'm curious.
Don't definitely want to use that up. Go ahead, Mr. Thomas.
I'll provide a fulsome report, but if memory serves me correct, the first part of the grant was to develop the ECDEV strategy, which was done. The second part was to fund the ECDEV officer's position, which is also hired and ongoing, but I'll provide a full account.
Okay.
I think it would just be good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks. Cemetery Advisory Committee, Councillor Banford.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. Our next meeting is September the 13th.
Okay, thank you. Committee representation reports, Tourism Wells Gray, Councillor Sim.
Claire Hannah just took the her first day was just last week, so we'll wait for her to get up to speed.
Awesome.
I will share though that the stats at the information center are really low.
Really? That's interesting.
Really low, startling. So, and I think that they will probably be reported out by the tourism manager. I would guess a couple of things is that the way of Google is changing the world. I don't know how many times I've been up Camp 2 Road and watched the campers about to go down before you stop them. And they're like, well, Google Maps, we're going to see the waterfalls. So rebranding that and just encouraging that, but also just bus tourism alone. And I think it shows what a hard go we've got. And I'm also concerned because the financial model that the center has depended on, which is revenues for different activities, will likely also be decreased. And so how will that building be funded moving forward? So if we think that tourism's in trouble, I think we're all right.
Okay, thank you. Wells Gray Community Forest Commission, Councillor Banford.
No meeting scheduled at this time. One will be scheduled when it's needed.
Thank you. Item 18.1, you have the CAO report. Once again, a huge long list of all the busyness. It's nice to see potholes getting fixed and stuff moving forward on that, and lots of conversations with the CAO about various things going on. Does anybody have any questions, or Mr. Thomas like to report anything out specifically on that? Councillor Banford has a question.
Just one quick question. On the page 3, I just noticed it says that there were beach and boat launch patrols. I'm just wondering if there were any issues that came up out of those, or things seem to be running fairly smoothly there.
Standard inspection is my understanding. We needed to do some repairs on one of the docks itself at the beach. That's all I'm aware of.
No real issues. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. The dike inspection report, emergency condition assessment. Mr. Thomas, are you speaking to that one?
Sure. During the freshet period of 2022, the rivers was quite high in a number of areas. The district actually issued a flood advisory at first, and I believe a flood watch at a different stage. The district has lots of critical infrastructure nearing the river, the Thompson-Nicola River, as well as lots of residents who are at risk. And the only protection that's in place is currently the dike. We had concerns that the water level would breach the dike, and so we had EMBC approve financing to have an emergency assessment done. The results are in here. Part of this work will form the foundation for applying for grants in the future for the district to do additional flood mitigation, including flood mitigation, I would say, as well as additional plans for how to protect the community that are at risk of flood in a known and assessed floodplain in the flats. The results are here for information purposes. Some of the findings and recommendations are in there as well. And staff is just looking for broad recommendation or support from staff support from council to apply for grants to advance planning and potentially infrastructure upgrades in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? Councillor Sim?
We did discuss this at the workshop. The short-term recommendations conduct a dike inspection during low water conditions. Is that something that we should be setting aside money for this fall?
Yes, I will look forward to receiving a quote on as to what that will cost. If we can certainly absorb it in our current budget, we will do so without asking for additional funds. If not, we will bring that forward back to council for direction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, from me, from the workshop and from the report, it was very interesting and detailed report to understand that, you know, even though we look at a dike that looks fairly solid, some of the building components of it, including the lava rock, might not have been the best choice. It was the right choice at the time because we had an emergency back in 72 or whatever, but it also was probably not the correct building material for a dike in the long run, and this is something we definitely have to pay attention to, especially around our sewage lagoons. So excellent work on that by Al Prime, Alcid, and I really appreciate the eye to that. He's a sharp guy. I'm very happy that we have him as part of our team for sure. So if there's nothing further, moving on to grant and aid request from Clearwater Slow Pitch.
I'll move this recommendation.
Okay. Seconder on that? Okay. So you do have a fairly lengthy report with budget on here, which is the kind of thing we usually like to see from people asking for money for us. So that's quite good. And yeah, another event.
I will also, one of the reasons why I'm favoring this so strongly is because the physician that we interviewed said, is there any chance that there's slow pitch around here? So I think, and although I laugh about that, but it just speaks to the more that we support our external organizations as they rebuild after COVID, it's just good for those that are coming to the community to get them involved.
Okay, cool. Councillor Frizzle.
The only thing that I have to say about this is it would be nice if somebody from the slow pitch committee, whatever it is, came and spoke to it. I would like to hear from them. That's all I have to say.
Fair enough.
Maybe at our 5:30 meetings.
Okay, so we do have a recommendation there. Would somebody like to move it and second it?
I think it was moved and seconded.
Oh, was it? Okay, I'm blonde. All those in favor?
I couldn't find my recommendation.
Thank you.
So.
Moving on to 18.4, election remuneration policy. You have a report before you. There is one recommendation in two parts there. Do you council have any questions of staff on that? Mr. Penny's been working on this stuff, so. Makes sense. This is basically so we can increase the rates. Is that correct,
Yeah.
Mr. Penny?
Correct. Well, I actually was a little closer at the 2008 policy, and it actually says it's explicitly for the 2008 election, but it has been used every year since then. So I did want to.
So what you're saying is I'm not actually mayor because we didn't actually do this right? Oh, that'd be awesome. Can I leave now? Anyways, no.
Well, I mean, the chief election officer is going to look to policy and direction from council on how that remuneration should be done. So this is an updated version. which
Okay.
Will apply until the council decides to update the policy.
Further questions?
I'll move
Yes.
option 1.
Okay, thank you. Seconder on option 1, thank you. Discussion, seeing none, all those in favor. Thank you. That takes us to page 4. And that is the recommendation that the draft election official remuneration policy number 223 be adopted as presented. On page 81. And that election, yeah, an election, official election remuneration policy, 2008-04 be rescinded. So there was,
That was a combined.
that was a combined. Okay, so we're already done that then. I'm just sorry, I was reading it on my agenda page, not on my, or sorry, on the report page, not on the agenda page. So that's my error there. Thank you. Moving to 18.5, proposal and principal sewer services report on pages 82 to 84. Do Mr. Thomas speak to this, or do council have questions on this?
This was related to the DVP council pass, and stemming from the discussion, it appears that council may be interested in revisiting the OCP and broader planning documents rather than looking at one-offs.
Yeah.
But I with direction.
Yes. Yeah, and I think pre-election, my comment is that we're going to go through this election period, but after election period with the new council, we definitely have to get on this because this is going to keep coming up where we're going to be forced into these situations where we just need good solid policy and direction and maybe an updated plan as well. Quickly, Councillor Sim.
I do wonder though, is because what we did see in that last one is that our policy doesn't seem to match our reality. Is that worth revisiting in the meantime as prep work? Or wait for the whole OCP? Because I'm just noting that we're being caught a few times on our policy because we're moving faster than that side of
Yeah,
government.
Mr. Thomas, do you like to comment to that?
I would caution council of simply looking at an individual piece without looking at the foundational piece, which is the OCP first. Because everything flows from how the community is designed based on that.
And just a second question to that is, yes, that's true. But what we hear quite often is if we don't get ahead of this, then we get into staff capacity. So it seems to me that policy issue has created some challenges. An OCP review, we did a mini review. It seems as though a more comprehensive review. I'm just curious because we do know that we've got 7 subdivision files in the works. Is that policy going to bite us at any point in time moving forward? Like while the OCP is being done? I just ask for your perspective.
It's hard to say without looking at each individual subdivision file, but what I will say is, given the years of familiarity staff have, I'm speaking primarily planning services and the approving officer, et cetera, with the current infrastructure, making changes now to this without the broader OCP in place will create, I believe, further challenges than solutions.
Okay, so working off just what we did today is maybe in order.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
believe so, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this has to be a point of focus.
And I
in
agree.
the next 6 months for sure. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yes.
not that there's not a ton of extra work, but this is definitely.
Well, that's the point.
So we are on to Dutch Lake 18.6 line painting option 3. Oh, sorry. 5? So we want to defer that to post-election.
Oh, I have a question on that though.
Okay,
Do you want to defer that point, this particular discussion, or do you want a motion to start looking at what an OCP review would be?
I honestly don't think we have time for either one of
No,
them.
I don't think,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
suggesting direct staff to look so that the OCP process is started. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know if we have time before the election.
I'm
to
not
get-
even,
yeah.
sorry, I'm not being clear. I'm not asking for this council to do anything, just that the work has started for the potential for an OCP. Help me out.
I would tie that into budget discussions.
Okay, thank you.
I'm recommending council table this so that it's off the docket and it's not left in limbo where it is, where it's not,
Okay.
until a wholesome review could be done about development in the community.
Okay, so we'll table this until a future date. Thank you. No, tabling doesn't require moving. Okay. Dutch Lake Beach line painting option 3, our famous lines. You have a report on page 85 to 103. This was part of our workshop discussion as well. I think we roughly ended up on a modified version of one of these plans here. So it's a decision of council, and I think council had decided to put in painted markers on the lanes as a starting point.
I was confused when I read this morning.
Mr. Thomas, please go ahead.
In the August 16th meeting, council asked us to provide a third option that more or less incorporated the existing line design on the ground. Working my way from the section of the road closest to Dutch Lake Beach, which is north, to the other side, closer to the pond, fishing pond, Clearwater Hatchery, to the south. At the north side, we have the first lane, the bike path or the pathway itself. The second section of lanes are the parking. Then we have 2 active travel lanes. That's the first thing. This design is meant to increase the visibility and safety exit for users, whether that be vehicular users or pedestrian users exiting Dutch Lake Beach. So we increased it, I believe, to about 40 meters sidelines exiting Dutch Lake Beach. That's primarily the difference for option 3. Everything else stays the same. Signage includes stencil signage on the actual pathway as well as the parking area. It is not recommended that the parking be placed on the north side closest to Dutch Lake Beach and have pedestrian sandwich between active travel lanes and parked vehicles, because that creates a serious risk of safety to users. Other than that, everything else stayed the same as what's on the ground.
Thank you. And I believe this is what council had discussed in the workshop, so that's the outcome. Councillor Sim?
What was the roadway? So if we're voting, it's option 3, original design, and I'm looking at $31,703. Is that what I'm looking at? What are the 5, where would the 5 delineators be? So roadway delineators, each 5 at 240 for 1,202.
Delineators, okay. Let me see what page you're on.
So I'm on page 94.
94, 2.6. The delineators on my map show them at the beginning of the parking of the bike lane. Yeah, so they're little tiny dots at the Wellsbury inside. There's also a series of them at the well, not the crosswalk, but the crossing point where you would exit Dutch Lake parking. Series of dots there as well. So
I wasn't aware that we had discussed delineators because at the workshop, did we?
yeah,
Okay.
That's correct.
Not along the roadway for
Okay,
parking.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It wouldn't, it may be problematic to have the delineators along the roadway because vehicles need to enter and exit the parking
Yeah.
area.
I didn't know if we needed the delineators at all when I saw, looked at the tiny dots, but I'm not a traffic expert.
So this is the,
Okay.
yeah. So this is the decision of council. Councillor Banford, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. So the option 3, I guess, which is what we're talking about, does that change any of the lane widths that are currently there?
No, it does
So
not.
the lane widths stay the same, which may be an issue for myself for the winter, when the winter months, especially because that's a snow side of the road that doesn't get a lot of sun. And the other question, I guess, in option 3 of the con, it's the greatest risk for user safety and require enforcement action is what the report says. What's our liability in relationship to that if something happened there because of the option that we chose?
We're
That
already-
sounds like something we should discuss in camera.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
fair
in
question.
terms of liability, it's hard to say what that may be without an incident for me to evaluate. What I will say is, whatever option council chooses, we need to amend that bylaw that's relevant to reflect what's on the ground.
And I guess I'm just wondering, part of that is a risk and liability for me. The other thing is are we making a decision based on a 2.5-month time period based on the other 9.5 months? That really isn't the issue. So just my concern on that kind of a thing.
Yeah, my comment back to you at this point would be this is going to be an evolving project here because we've always had the intention of further developing that area of Dutch Lake for better quality parking and that sort of thing. So I think this is step one to get us through where we're at now. And in the future, when other grants and we get back to redesigning this community, we will probably make further improvements there. And I don't see them as this is a learning curb. I think we'll be on that one fairly quickly. So yeah, it may be just to get us through this winter, this next year, but I'm sure we'll be on it as part of discussion in the future. Yeah, Councillor Frizzle.
On this roads and site improvements, the existing paveway markings removal, where's that at? The very first thing.
For the parking stalls that are right abutting the exit to Dutch Lake Beach. So those need to be removed and new
Okay.
paint markings need to be put on the
Okay.
ground to reflect.
Just, I couldn't visually see where that was. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
entrance egress.
Thank you. Thank you. So motion to move option 3, I think is what it's required now. Somebody want to do that? It's a step until we get to the next version of this. Okay. Seconder on that? Bueller, anybody? Nobody wants to put up their hand on that because it dies right now if nobody seconds it. Thank you, Councillor Sim. All those in favor? Okay. And I look forward to this long-term discussion on this as part of UBC or as the OCP process post-election. No bylaws. There is correspondence. We do have communications from Thompson Nicola Regional District. Annual report. Also have a beautiful card from soccer. Tori Cook. So yes, there's a lot of kids in that picture. I'm hearing a lot of pressure on schools everywhere, so that's good. And FESBC, a letter from there as well. Correspondence. So the first one is TNRD annual report. And then are there any comments on any of those 3? No. Okay, no notice of motion, no other business. We do need to move into in camera under sections 91C of the community charter to consider matters pursuant to labor relations or other employee relations. Can I get somebody to move and second that? Moved, seconded by Councillor Banford. All those in favor? And we'll take a 5-minute recess. Oh, hey, comments from the public. Hello, public.
Seems to me like I 6:30. I'm not impressed because I told them.
So the, so our intention with the 6 o'clock evening meeting is to get more people to attend, and also we did. Thank you for your comments, but we'll see how it goes. Thank you. Anything further? Okay, see everybody in 5 or 10 minutes. We'll just get reset. It is currently 3:30. See you at 3:40.